Hello, science teachers. I'm Dr. Amy Mancini, and I'm here to talk to you just a little bit about reading in science class, specifically about something that we call close reading. And this is something that is really called for in the Common Core State Standards and in the Next Generation Science Standards. We're asking students to read in new ways and to really closely examine what it is that they're reading in order to be able to get to deeper levels of understanding and in order to be able to get to more complex thinking. This may not be a way that you've ever approached reading in science before, and it may not be a way that your students are really familiar with. But what we do know is that close reading can really help students to make connections, to be able to find evidence, to be able to do the things that real scientists out in the field often have to do. We know that they spend the vast majority of their time actually reading and researching and then writing to communicate their findings. And this type of reading really sets them up for success in those kinds of authentic science work and authentic science activities. So with that, let's just get right into it. Maybe. There we go. All right, so close reading is purposefully reading a text several times in order to analyze and gain a deep understanding of the text. The several times part is probably the new piece for you, and it is certainly probably the new piece for students. What's important to understand is we don't reread simply to reread, and we don't reread and get nothing new out of it. The whole idea of close reading is every time I approach a text, I come with a purpose. I come with a something that I'm looking for. And every time I read, I dig a little deeper. So if you think about it in terms of digging a hole, right? The first time I read it, I just skim the surface and I get that main idea in detail. I get a basic comprehension of the vocabulary. I come back again and I go a little bit deeper and I'm looking at what the author is doing in the specific vocabulary and the structure of the piece. And then I come back and I read it a third time. And on that third time, because I have a thorough understanding of what's going on and what's being communicated, I'm making connections. I'm developing a deep understanding. I'm creating arguments and justifying claims. And so I really am able to get those deep, deep levels of comprehension. And we would actually probably even argue knowledge utilization, right? I'm getting to those deep levels of knowledge utilization through multiple readings. If this is something that you want a little bit more of a definition about, there's a great video embedded here. Dr. Doug Fisher, who did a lot of the research behind close reading, has just a quick 4-minute video. I'm not going to play it now, but you will receive this Prezi, and this is certainly something that I would encourage you to watch if you need just a better understanding of what it is and what it isn't. So what do we emphasize with close reading? On that first read, like I said, we emphasize key ideas and details. That's surface understanding. The second read, we emphasize craft and structure. And on the third read, integration of ideas. So we're going to look at each of these individually and kind of understand what they mean. So Tim Shanahan, who's one of the leading authors on the Common Core State Standards, really puts it out like this, right? On that first read, we're determining what the text says. These are literal questions. Who, what, when, where, why type questions, right? On the second read, we think about how the text works. What is the author doing in this text? And I'll give you some examples of that in just a moment. And then on the third read, we evaluate the quality of the content. So we're saying, is this a good article? What is the bias? What connections can I make to something else that I've read? So every time I come back in, I come with a different purpose. Every time I come back in, I gain a deeper understanding. And every time I come back in, I get something new out of the text, right? So in that first read, I'm looking for key ideas and details. This is when I'm making connections to my background knowledge. I'm answering literal right there questions. This is probably the read that most of us stopped with in the past. This is why we only had students read a text one time. They could read it once and answer these questions. I myself, as a social studies teacher, would give my kids a reading guide. What was the example of, they used for this? And what vocabulary word is this? And what means that? These very basic who, what, when, where, why type questions that are literally right there in the text. I can highlight it, answer my question, and I'm done. There is a place for that, and that's why we start there. But that doesn't get us to the deepest levels of understanding that text or really in using that text. So we have that basic understanding. We've highlighted those answers. We've filled out that reading guide. Now what, right? The next piece is craft and structure. Craft and structure is looking at who's writing the article, what's their bias, what's their background, what university are they coming from for science, right? How are they sharing this information? Are they giving us an article? Is it a blog? Is it in a textbook? Are they sharing it and using, as far as format goes, cause and effect structure? Oh, okay, that's helping us to make connections. I understand why the author did that. Is it chronological, right? Is the author including diagrams and text features and photographs and captions? It's in this second read that I'm really looking carefully at those text features, at those text structures, and really understanding what it is that the author is trying to communicate. Words are super important in this stage. I'm looking at what vocabulary are they using over and over and over. What vocabulary are they avoiding, right? So, gee, this author uses the word climate change all the time. This author seems to avoid that word and is unwilling to use it. What does that communicate to us about what the author is trying to say? On the third read, we're really looking at the integration of knowledge. Ooh, I'm looking at this article, I'm looking at this article, and I'm making those connections. I'm reading this article, I'm thoroughly understanding it, and now I'm making a connection to the model that we did online in my Amplify. Now I am understanding from this what the scientific phenomenon was in my experiment that I did, right? I'm recording my thinking, I'm processing with other students, I'm talking, I'm making inferences, right? Inferences are really about what's in the text, what's in my head, and how does it go together? So that what's in my head is all of those other experiences that they have in science class. If we don't get to this third read, it's very, very difficult to have students make inferences. Teachers say over and over and over, my kids can't make inferences. They can't seem to make these connections. A big piece of that is we didn't spend enough time reading and rereading and really carefully examining the text so that they're ready to do those inferences. They can develop theories at this point and justify and support, right? So the third read is the goal. That's the meat. But the work has to be done up front in order to make it successful. So what strategies can you use for this? That first read, quick, general understanding, it should be fast. We shouldn't belabor this. And students should be asking authentic questions themselves. One of the most important things that kids can do in order to be motivated to read a text is to ask questions. It sets a purpose for reading. It gives them something that they're looking for. So if I want to know, right, oh, I wonder about these, Arctic ice caps. What are they? That sounds kind of like a weird term. I wonder what it is. It can be a very basic question, this first read through, right? But it's enough to get them looking into the text and digging into it to find out more. This should generate more questions. One of the things good readers do is they interact with the text. They have a conversation with the author. It's what we call in reading theory, the transactional theory, right? I'm having a conversation with the author. And the way that I have that conversation is by interacting, asking questions, and really, a lot of times, marking up the text with code. This is what we call annotating, right? Putting a star next to important things, putting a question mark next to things that I'm not sure about and I want to ask my teacher or ask my group. I am circling words I don't understand so I can seek clarification. So I'm monitoring my own reading and my own understanding. I'm marking up the text, and then I'm kind of crowdsourcing, so to speak, that understanding through conversation. We focus on specific questions of inquiry. So, right, we get eventually to those very kind of deep level conversations. And we do this through actively reading and engaging. This cannot be go and sit silently in the corner with this piece of paper and highlight your answers. That's not. All right, I got cut off, but I'm going to slice these two videos together. So what I was saying was that's not active reading, right? Active reading is being purposeful, reading with a pen in your hand, talking with a partner, those kinds of things. If you want to see some specific strategies from a teacher, this video right here, let me just zoom into it. There we go. This video right here has a teacher talking about how he has students do that. Some of his examples are fiction text rather than nonfiction, but the premise is the same. And he goes through those 3 levels. He goes through the importance of kids asking questions to feel success, and lots of different things. So very worthwhile video, 4 minutes long, super short and sweet, but awesome. So we're at the end. Close reading, careful and purposeful rereading of a text. That is close reading. And really, it is a powerful tool. And in my years as a reading educator, I don't know that I've been as excited as I have been about close reading. It is a way for students to really slowly and carefully scaffold into much more complex thoughts, much more complex understandings, and to finally get to those rich conversations that we've always wanted to have about topics. And it provides them the language and the vehicle to do that. I hope that as you are exploring close reading and as you are exploring your Amplify Science, that if you continue to have questions about how to incorporate these things with your middle schoolers, I would love to come and work with you. I would love to come and offer additional advice or feedback for your students. So reach out to me, reach out to Katie Ramsey, and have yourself a wonderful time with your students.